Hello everyone, today I'm working on an Iceomatic Ice machine, and as you can see we have a red LED flashing. So let's go ahead here and pull up our service manual, and if we go to Power LED Quick Flash Red, we get unit has experienced a max freeze, which is 1 hour in this case, or a max harvest of 5.5 minutes, or both. Alright, so that error code is obviously not very specific. So the one issue I'm finding with people troubleshooting ice machines is really the length of time they're spending on troubleshooting them. The ice machines are not easy to repair. I'll be the first to admit that. It took me time to understand them. But really, like I always explain, break things down in 3 circuits. Water circuit, electrical circuit, and the refrigeration circuit. 90% of the time, it will not be the refrigeration circuit. And that's the hardest part to understand. So if we can eliminate that part of the circuit, the troubleshooting becomes a whole lot easier. All right, so let's run through our sequence of operations and let's find out what would make a max freeze and what would make a max harvest. All right, so basically our unit starts up. It's looking for that curtain switch to be closed. And then it's gonna start filling water, and then the high float switch and the low float switch are gonna let it know there's water in the trough. Then we're gonna go through a freeze cycle. So maximum freeze cycle is 1 hour. Our compressor will start up. And what we want to focus on here is what would cause an hour freeze. So now we're looking to see what would make a max freeze of 1 hour. So we need to know what terminates the freeze cycle. So in our case, there's a low float switch. Once that closes on water level drop, indicating the unit is ready to harvest. So we have 60 minutes for this to happen. So what could cause this not to happen? All right, so let's quickly review what the freeze cycle is going to do. So first things that's going to happen is the fill solenoid is going to fill our water trough right in here until our high level probe float switch closes. So how do we know the water trough is full? Well, if the water trough was not full, we would be getting error number 3, which is unit has experienced a max fill of 5 minutes, meaning in 5 minutes we have not filled up this water trough. And once we have water, our compressor is going to start up, our refrigeration cycle is going to start. So we're going to pull water from the trough here, bring it up through this water manifold, and it's going to distribute right through here onto this evaporator coil. So at this point, there's a few reasons why we might experience a max freeze of 1 hour. So first things first, is our pump, which is located right here, is it circulating water through the manifold and onto the coil? If that's working, the next thing is our coil actually getting cold? If it's not getting cold, then we go to that 10% issue I said of there being a refrigeration issue. But like I said, it's very rare we're going to get a refrigeration issue on an ice machine. So we always rule out the water circuit, then the electrical circuit. So once we verified that our pump's good and our coil is getting cold, water is going to distribute through there. So let's say we have this much water. So as water starts to distribute from the trough, from the pump to the manifold down on the coil, this water level here is going to drop as the water starts to turn into ice on the coil. Once it gets to a certain level, the contacts on the low water float will close, starting a harvest. So based on all that, we're looking at a potential pump issue, a potential refrigeration issue, and we're going to look at, is our low float closing? So is the water level in this trough actually dropping? All right, so let's go ahead and take a peek at our machine, and it is absolutely filthy. Look at that. So there's a good chance we have a water problem here. So let's just go take a look in here. There's our float switch, there's our pump. They are absolutely filthy. So let's go ahead and pull everything apart, get everything out. In this case, we have to pull everything out because it is filthy, as you can see. Water distribution manifold is plugged, and here's our float switch that I was talking about. There's our high float and our low float on the right hand side. And if we look at this float, it's got a bunch of numbers written here. It's telling us the size of the cubes we want. So before you pull apart this float, make sure you look at these numbers. You can see 10, 9, 8. We're an 8 in this case. Make sure you pay attention to that because this will affect the size of the cubes. And we're going to soak this thing in ice machine cleaner. And there you go. You can see here I've set it to number 8. There's our float adjustment so we can make our ice thicker. The machine's nice and clean. Our pump, our float are back into place. And we can see now we have water in the trough. It's distributing water as it should be, so we know the water pump's good, and our coil is getting nice and cold. And we are about to jump into a harvest cycle here. And as always, we want to time our cycle. So our free cycle was 17 minutes, and you can see we're 15 seconds into our harvest cycle. And look at that, we're starting to drop ice off the coil. And look at the cubes, they're nice and uniform. Bridge thickness is great on this one. Our timing's really good. So we know we don't have an harvest issue. We just dropped ice into our bin. Ice is nice and uniform. We don't have pieces smaller than others, bigger than others. And you can see here, we had a 1 minute and 23 second harvest cycle. We made ice in 18 minutes, so we're all good to go. All right, so last thing we want to do is pull up our timing chart. So we have a CIM 530, and if we pull up our approximate cycle times, they intersect at 18 to 22 minutes. We had 18 and a half minutes, so it is making ice in the time we want. It's the shape we want, so we're good with that. So I just want to quickly review. We didn't go over the harvest cycle. We really didn't need to. We had timed it, so we get 5.5 minutes. We're in a minute and a half harvest cycle. We know everything is good there. And I just want to reiterate on these ice machines, just start with water. Always start with the water cycle. If you're not sure, I work on this specific model a lot, so it's easy for me to troubleshoot it quickly. But just say I work on a model that I'm not familiar with, the first thing I always go after is the water circuit. Okay, are we distributing water evenly? Is the machine clean? And if I can rule all those things out, then I start going through the sequence of operations, and then we start going step by step to see why we're not making ice.